North Korean kids learned their leader controls weather. Cambodia executed people for wearing glasses. But one education system was so twisted, so methodically evil, it makes the others look like summer camp. Ready to have your mind blown? North Korea, manufacturing living gods. Ever wondered how you build a god? North Korea has it down to a science. In their classrooms, children learn that Kim Jong-un learned to drive at age 3, controls weather, and never uses a bathroom. But this isn't quirky propaganda, it's the most systematically engineered brainwashing machine in modern history. From the moment North Korean kids walk, they're force-fed pure psychological manipulation. Their textbooks? Pure fantasy. Kim Il-sung descended from heaven on a magical mountain. Kim Jong-il's birth brought a double rainbow and new star. Sound ridiculous? Question these facts and your entire family vanishes to a labor camp. Express doubt? 3 generations of your bloodline face punishment. This isn't education, it's engineered psychological submission. Buckle up, because their history gets even more absurd. According to textbooks, North Korea single-handedly won World War II. Kim Il-sung personally defeated both Japan and America. South Korea started the Korean War, obviously, and Americans, they're drinking children's blood or something equally cartoonishly evil. By 13, every student becomes a child soldier. They disassemble AK-47s, throw live grenades, and bayonet dummies dressed as American soldiers. Math homework? Calculating artillery trajectories to hit Seoul. English lessons consist of phrases like, "Die, American dogs!" Teachers live in constant terror. Forget to dust the mandatory Kim portraits? You might disappear overnight. Every classroom has 2 portraits, Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, kept at a specific height, angle, and spotless condition. Government inspectors literally measure these portraits. The result is chilling. An entire population imprisoned in a parallel reality where their leader is an all-knowing God King who invented hamburgers, never poops, and reads minds. The most terrifying part? It works. When defectors escape, many spend years deprogramming. Some still fear Kim Jong-un can read their thoughts from thousands of miles away. Cambodia. Knowledge equals death. In Cambodia, between 1975 and 1979, wearing glasses could get you killed. The Khmer Rouge wasn't just fighting education, they were hunting down anyone who showed signs of intelligence. Speaking French, owning a book, or even looking educated meant execution in the killing fields. But what made their approach truly terrifying wasn't the concept. It was the execution. Their leader Pol Pot had a vision so twisted, it defies belief. Reset Cambodian society to year 0 by transforming the population into an uneducated agrarian workforce. Therefore, his first command was systematically destroying the country's entire education system. Every school shut down, universities converted to torture centers, libraries burned to ash, their books feeding the inferno of ignorance. Teachers faced the worst fate. Some were worked to death in labor camps, others executed immediately. The regime's motto tells you everything. To keep you is no benefit, to destroy you is no loss. Yet the true horror wasn't what happened to adults, it was what they did to children. Kids as young as 7 were transformed into soldiers and spies, forced to report on their own families. Many participated in executions, their childhood innocence twisted into something unrecognizable. Think that's extreme? The paranoia reached insane levels. People buried their glasses, choosing partial blindness over death. Speaking a foreign language? Death. Reading a book? Death. Even looking intellectual was enough to mark you for execution. The numbers are staggering. Out of 1,000 teachers, only 50 survived. 96% of university students perished. Imagine every book burning, every teacher dying, an entire generation forced to forget how to read. When the regime fell in 1979, they left behind a hollow nation where knowledge itself had become a death sentence, and a generation of children who had learned only one subject: how to betray their own families. What could possibly be more evil than turning learning itself into a crime? Japan, education through force. By sunrise on August 6, 1945, hundreds of university students had volunteered to die by crashing planes into enemy ships. Their sacrifice began decades earlier in classrooms across Japan. The transformation from ordinary children to human missiles started in 1890 with a document that would weaponize education itself. The Imperial Rescript on Education wasn't just policy, it was psychological engineering marked as patriotism. What happened inside these classrooms? Each morning began with students bowing to the emperor's portrait, mumbling the loyalty pledge, beating. Lack of enthusiasm, beating. Questioning the ritual, severe beating. Followed by lectures on imperial divinity. Nevertheless, the physical abuse merely laid groundwork for the mental reconstruction. History classes erased authentic samurai traditions, replacing them with propaganda about joyful self-sacrifice. Science taught racial superiority theories. Even math turned lethal. If one soldier kills 5 enemies, how many enemies can your classroom eliminate? The results were nightmarishly effective. Those kamikaze pilots weren't forced into suicide missions, they competed for the honor. University students wrote death poems before their final flights, genuinely believing their fiery demise would bring glory to their families. Here's what keeps me awake at night. This wasn't a failed experiment, it was devastatingly successful mass programming. Japan manufactured an entire generation willing to die for an emperor they'd never even seen. They created a system where children didn't just obey out of terror, they genuinely wanted to die for the state. And that psychological blueprint, it still exists today. Taliban, burning dreams. Why are they doing this to us? We just want to learn, whispers a 12-year-old Afghan girl, her classroom now a smoldering ruin. Her question haunts me because the answer reveals humanity's darkest impulse, the terror some feel when women seek knowledge. The Taliban didn't just ban female education, they waged chemical warfare against it. Militants armed with acid bottles raided classrooms, transforming learning tools into instruments of torture. Young girls caught studying their ABCs had their faces melted off. A message written in burning flesh that said, knowledge isn't for you. The brave souls who defied them? A teacher caught running an underground school for girls in Kandahar was executed outside her former classroom in 1998. Her body remained hanging for 3 days. A warning to anyone who might follow her path. Though this sounds like medieval barbarism, it happened during your lifetime. Between 1996 and 2001, they bombed, burned, or demolished hundreds of schools. Each building represented thousands of potential doctors, engineers, and leaders. Destinies erased before they could even begin. The education apocalypse didn't end there. After briefly losing power, they returned in 2021 with even more sophisticated methods of oppression. Now they use digital surveillance to hunt those who might be teaching girls secretly. What makes this educational horror unique isn't just its brutality, it's its ongoing nature. While Imperial Japan and the Khmer Rouge belong to history books, this one unfolds right now. As you watch this, Afghan girls risk acid attacks and execution just to learn arithmetic. The Taliban's war on female education continues consuming futures, dreams, and lives daily. South Africa, teaching white supremacy. $1 versus $10. That's what education was worth in apartheid South Africa. $1 spent on black students for every $10 on whites. Yet money was just the beginning of what might be history's most mathematically precise system of educational oppression. The architect, Dr. Hendrik Verwoerd, who in 1953 declared with bone-chilling clarity, "There's no place for the native in the European community above certain forms of labor." Unlike our previous monsters who use bullets and acid, Verwoerd weaponized spreadsheets and curriculum design. His Bantu Education Act wasn't just discriminatory, it was educational eugenics. The classrooms tell the story. 70 black students crammed into sweltering rooms without electricity or running water, while just miles away, white schools featured Olympic pools and cutting-edge science labs. The curriculum itself, pure psychological warfare. Black students learned just enough math to count their pitiful wages. Science focused exclusively on domestic labor. History portrayed colonizers as saviors. This wasn't education, It was programming for permanent servitude. The regime's arrogance peaked in 1974 when they mandated Afrikaans, the oppressor's language, in black schools. Studying became daily humiliation. Then came June 16, 1976. Soweto erupted as 20,000 students marched in protests. The government's scholarly response? Gunning down hundreds of children. 13-year-old Hector Peterson's lifeless body became the revolution's symbol. Like this video to honor those brave students who fought back. The truly disturbing part, this system worked exactly as designed. Not through terror or violence like the Taliban, but through coldly calculated inequality that created psychological wounds still bleeding through generations today. Some weapons don't need bullets to destroy lives. Sometimes all they need is a carefully crafted curriculum. Canada, graves behind school walls. In 2021, ground-penetrating radar revealed thousands of small, unmarked graves outside buildings once called schools. Inside lay the remains of Indigenous children as young as 3. Their crime? Being born native in Canada. You might think I'm describing some distant colonial horror, but the last of these institutions didn't close until 1996. Yeah, while you were watching Friends or playing Pokemon, Indigenous children were still being stripped of their identity through what Canada politely called residential schools. The system began in 1876 with one clear goal: kill the Indian in the child. And unlike previous educational nightmares we've explored, this one operated in what many consider one of the world's most progressive nations. Day 1 stripped away everything. Military uniforms replaced traditional clothing. Personal belongings burned before their eyes. Their sacred long hair, never cut since birth, violently chopped off while they watched. Even their names vanished. Mary Littlebird became 759. Thomas Running Wolf turned into Student 142, speaking their native language, a mouthful of lye soap that burned their tongues and throats raw. Repeat offenders face isolation in dark closets for days, regular beatings, or worse. The death rates were staggering. Overcrowded dormitories became infection factories where TB and influenza ravaged tiny bodies. Death rates reached 60% in some facilities. "Your son died last night" was all one mother received in a cold letter, if they bothered notifying parents at all. Physical abuse was standard procedure. Sexual abuse was rampant throughout the system, with countless children suffering in silence. At St. Anne's Residential School, children caught speaking their language had needles pushed through their tongues. Some were forced into homemade electric chairs for staff entertainment. Others had their teeth drilled without anesthetic as punishment. The aftermath? Over 150,000 children processed, thousands dead, entire languages extinct, cultural knowledge erased, generations traumatized. The most disturbing part? This wasn't the work of some fringe extremist group. This was official government policy in a civilized Western democracy for over a century. And what's coming next in our final story might be the most systematically evil education system humanity has ever created. Nazi Germany, engineering perfect children. Behind every school gate in Nazi Germany lurked a system so methodically evil, it reprogrammed an entire generation with clockwork precision. Every lesson, every activity had one purpose: creating perfect racial soldiers. Biology class, children learned they were the master race, getting measured, examined, and ranked on their Aryan features. Nose too wide, face too round, you'd fail the course. Math problems calculated the cost of keeping the disabled alive, teaching kids that some humans were financial burdens not worth feeding. History underwent surgical revision. Jewish contributions erased. German defeats never happened. Every child learned Germany was stabbed in the back by Jewish conspirators. Science textbooks contained fabricated research proving certain races were subhuman, literally teaching children that killing wasn't murder if the victim wasn't fully human. Outside classrooms, mandatory Hitler Youth membership turned playtime into military training. Boys learned to throw grenades by age 10. Girls were taught their bodies belonged to the state, their highest purpose being breeding the next generation of Nazi soldiers. Teachers faced a lethal choice: poison young minds or disappear into camps. Most chose survival. The result? By 1939, an entire generation had been converted into willing accomplices. Children reported their parents for anti-Nazi comments, teenagers joined death squads, university students designed more efficient gas chambers. When Allied forces finally liberated Germany, they discovered something almost as horrifying as the death camps. Millions of young people who genuinely believed in Nazi ideology. Education hadn't just taught hatred, it had manufactured it on an industrial scale. That's the ultimate lesson about education as a weapon. With the right system, you can make children believe anything. You can make them do anything. And that's a warning we damn well better never forget. If you thought this was intense, wait till you see what's next. The stakes are higher, the chills go deeper, and the twists, oh, they're about to get insane. You want to be there for every second. I'll see you there.